Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guitar Souls podcast. This is episode number 98, if my calculations are correct. I believe they are. And I am one of your hosts, Mr. Levi Clay. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Mike McLaughlin. How is it going, bud?
Hello, handsome. I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, tired. It's just going to be the same thing we'll say every single time we do this, because we are in such a routine now. We record this podcast at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Like maniacs. So yeah, tired, but that's nothing new there, right?
Absolutely. It's like the Incredible Hulk when it was it Mark Ruffalo plays him? Yep. He goes like, "That's my secret. I'm always tired," and runs away. That's me.
Yeah, that's
things are always fun and games. I got paid off on Monday, as you know, which was great. So on the job hunt, not too bad. I'm not too worried about it. Just happens to happen, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think your terminology there is way too kind. When you say I got paid off, that implies that you got a bunch of money.
Oh yes, sorry. So I worked for an agency.
You got laid off.
Yes, on essentially a 0 hours contract, and I got pulled in Monday afternoon and told that they don't need my labour anymore. So I got paid to the end of that day. And as I was telling everybody last week, and obviously I missed the Monday Night Guitar Geek Club. And if you're not watching right now, the next episode, you should be here on YouTube at 9 PM on the Monday to watch, because it's approaching a live one.
Oh,
Number 100, Levi and I are going to get fucked up, probably. Anyway, I was telling everybody that my granny was unwell. My granny's been put in a hospice, so things aren't good for her, but she's also in the best place for her to be comfortable. So love and hopes and prayers if you're a religious person, and mental sentiments and goodwill wishes if you're not, to my wee granny, please.
Yeah, I'll do my rant and rage. I'm currently dealing with solicitors, lawyers, incompetent fucks. Now that's unfair. They're not incompetent fucks, but it's almost like they've never dealt with a self-employed person before. I can't fathom it. Right? I'm trying to deal with taking over this house. This is my house now. Haley has nothing to do with it anymore. I'm giving her money, and she's bought a new house. Cool. But why does it have to be so difficult? I need to transfer her the money, and I was just going to send her the money, but then my lawyers were like, well, would you like to send it via us? That way she won't need to send us any paperwork to confirm that she's got it, and it will move things along quicker. I'm like, yeah, that sounds fantastic. So they want to see my, bank accounts and everything, so they know that the money isn't being laundered or anything like that. And they take one look at my bank accounts and they go, so you've got a lot of money coming into these bank accounts, and you have lots of money coming in from PayPal and things like this. We're gonna need more information on all of this. And now I'm in this strange position where every time I send them new invoices and new receipts for every accounting for every bit of money that's come in, there's more that they want information on, more and more. And they want tax returns, and now they want I've had to send them PayPal statements, and now they want me to start providing invoices for every single thing that anybody's ever paid me for on PayPal. And I just, when they're asking me what's this money from Fundamental Changes, it's like, motherfuckers, just Google my fucking name. You can see that I am an author I've told you I'm an author for Fundamental Changes. That's my royalties. What's this money from Patreon? Motherfucker, I've told you. I have a Patreon page. It's a big part of how I support my lifestyle, my career. Obviously, that's what that money is. Have you never dealt with a self-employed person before? It's fucking me right off, because it just feels like it's slowing everything down. And I just want to say to them, you know what, guys? Fuck it. Don't worry about it. I'll just send her the money myself. But then it starts to look like I am laundering money, and I don't want to, share information with them. And it's put me in this very strange position that I'm not overly happy with. And it's, yeah. And to make matters worse, you know what, actually, they sent me the last email where they said, we want more information. They sent me that at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. 5 o'clock on a Friday. You could have sent that on the Monday rather than ruining my weekend, stressing me out, pissing me off. You could have phoned me. No. We're just gonna send an email that you won't be able to respond to. Motherfuckers.
The onus being you need to hurry up and get this back to us as soon as possible, knowing fine well that nothing's going to get looked at to the very earliest Monday morning.
Yeah.
Cunts.
Yeah, I got that at 5:30, and I was at Melissa's house, and even though I knew that getting them everything they wanted was going to be useless at that point, I still had to do it then because it was just going to consume my mind otherwise. And I'm at Melissa's, I don't have my PC, I don't have access to all of my files, so I had to bust out a laptop, log into my Dropbox, and start collecting and collating invoices to send over. And yeah, and I guess so pissed off because I've sent everything over, and I just know that Monday's going to roll around. They're going to look at it and go, "Yeah, cool. We also want this, and we'd like this." And Jesus, motherfucking Christ. Anyway, would you like some other good news?
Yes, I would.
Let's start it with, did you know? This show is brought to you by Ormsby Guitars. If you want to see something beautiful, head on over to Ormsby's Instagram page right now and see what they are all about. Ormsby Guitars have been at the cutting edge of guitar design innovation since Perry started the company way back in 2003. Since then, the brand has gone on to be one of the #1 brands associated with Australia and modern guitar design. Aside from having one of the most ridiculous custom shops in the market today and a dedicated team that can essentially build you anything that your heart desires, more recently the brand has gained critical acclaim for their runs of custom order guitars manufactured in Korea, shipped to Australia and then sent out through their distributor network. These guitars include incredible designs such as the Hype and the Goliath. If you head on over to Ormsby's website right now and check out the pre-order section, you can pre-order a Goliath Run 14 guitar now for under $1,200. That's an incredible price and an amazing amount of guitar for your money. So as always, a huge thanks to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars. And as I said there, or prior to that, good news, talking about good news. If you are in the UK, and we have a decent portion of listeners in the UK, as you would expect, Ormsby have a new dealer in the UK. In fact, it's Peach Guitars. Now, Peach Guitars are a shop that I have a relatively long history with, owned by John Priest. Originally had a shop out in Chelmsford, somewhere out in Essex. I've been there several times, but I can't. Bingford? Been there many times, but can't for the life of me think where it is. They've expanded and they've opened up a shop in Colchester as well now, which is where I went to college.
Nice.
Yeah, big fan of John, big fan of Peach Guitars. Great shop, great selection of things in stock, and
never heard a bad word about him. Never been in the shop, but only ever heard people talk about him, and only ever heard very good things.
Yeah. So they have a selection of SXs and Futuras in stock. So head on over to Peach Guitars website if you're in the UK and you've missed the opportunity to pre-order one of these beautiful guitars. Check them out, and here's the other thing. Let them know that we sent you. That's really important. Hit Peach up on YouTube, hit them up on Facebook. If you buy one, let them know that we sent you. I did reach out to John and ask if he wanted to do something to promote the fact that they had the guitars in stock. But it's one of those weird things, isn't it? It's like they don't really need to do anything because we're going to mention it anyway. They're going to get that promotion anyway. There's no need for them to do anything official. Though it would be nice. It would be nice if they did that, because then I might have been able to wrangle a free power supply out of it, because I blew up my power supply.
I like that. That was like a professional segue of, I was going to beg them for something, and here's why.
Yeah. I blew up my power supply.
I know, man.
Because I've been having strange problems with it. It's been unreliable. It doesn't power off or anything like that, but there's just certain pedals that don't seem to want to work correctly when I'm using it. And I've been trying to diagnose why that might be. Many things in my signal chain, and I'd got down to, well, maybe it's the power supply. Very strange that it would work for almost everything else perfectly. So I was trying a few things with the power supply. I borrowed Mike's power supply as well, tried that, and well, that ran everything absolutely fine. So I'm like, okay, definitely the power supply. So what I thought I'd do is just fiddle around with it. I've taken the screws off the bottom of it, and you take these screws off and it still doesn't come off. You can't take it off then because there are rivets in the side, so I couldn't look inside. So there's a little switch on the side here, the voltage switch, right? So I was like, okay, let's fiddle around with this. So I switched it into 115 and then back into 230, and in doing that, it just blew the power supply up. So, but that's what I needed, you know what I mean? Because otherwise I would have just kept trying to use this even though there's something not quite right with it. So my T-Rex fuel tank is dead. And I want to get the I think it's the Dunlop, the ISO brick. You'll pick up one of the ISO bricks.
See, my problem with the ISO brick is, as much as it looks good, it doesn't have like a kettle plug going into it. It's like a wall wart, a tiny wee 9 volt plug in, and then that feeds out to the rest.
Is that the case? Huh.
Yes, and that's why I wouldn't get it, because I didn't want to have to worry about having like a wee adapter that goes into the wall and then a 9 volt that goes into it to separate it out. I wanted a kettle lead where I knew it was going to be a secure connection.
I'm really glad that you've pointed that out. If that's the case on the big ISO brick, yeah. Okay, I don't want an ISO brick because that won't work in my. You've saved my ass there. That wouldn't work on my pedal board.
There you go. I mean, not being daft, excuse me, but genuinely that Harley Benton one that I got, it's like Power Plant Pro or something it's called.
Yeah.
That wasn't expensive and it's really good. It's well made. Given you've got quite a big pedal board, those ones are modular, so you could get that one and the next one up and you would have more than enough for every pedal you could imagine.
Yeah, okay, back to the drawing board, more research. The things that you don't consider, right? The things that you need your friends to point out to you.
It's not very often that I would ever one-up you when it comes to pedal knowledge. That's a strange one, isn't it?
Yeah. I have a lot of pedals. It doesn't necessarily mean I know a lot about pedals.
Says you that's got the temple board, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
My pedal board was not built because I wanted to have effects. It was built out of necessity.
Yeah.
How do I make a racket as loud as possible with the least amount of size and weight to take it places?
I'm thinking about getting another one of those temple boards. Actually, just a smaller one, so I can have something under my desk. That would be that'd be nice. But yeah, so my point there is I don't really know much about pedals. I just have a lot of them. Speaking of people that don't know a lot about things, for example, bass players, let's talk about Lucas Mann. Oh, this is fun. I'm so excited by this. I was sent this a few days ago and laughed my arse off at it. Sent it to a couple of people via Messenger. And then today when we sat down to do the show, I was like, okay, got to dig out that post. Got to talk about that. But Lucas had deleted the post, right? And when Lucas Mann, a famous troll who loves to say things just to rile people up, when he deletes a post, that tells you something. This either was one of two things. It either was a ridiculously dumb take that he doesn't want people to be able to read again, or it highlights or adds credence to some of the accusations that have been made about Lucas and his band when they play live, and that's the way I think I take this. But why don't we read the statement, Mike? Do you want to read the statement? Because Mike, of course, had archived it.
Of course, I had. Levi mentioned it as if I hadn't seen it, and I'm like, I'll get you a link to it in this very second. Actually, just for context, I linked this from an extreme metal bass players page on Facebook that a few of my friends run. And it's a great, like, kind of community page, and they're always either talking about things to do with bass or the newest gear or whatever. They do playthrough videos on a Sunday, whatever else. It's a really cool community, but it's nice to watch these conversations because I know a lot of guys who are ridiculous musicians that have commented on this situation, and they all have differing opinions. Some of them are like, aye, fair enough, and the problem is that people are going on stage with this and that, whatever else. Anyway, before we get into that, I'll read you the comment.
Sure.
But my context is that where I found it and where I wanted to keep the source from is tremendous for just conversation from people who are actually in that situation.
Yeah.
So, Lucas Mann very intelligently and coherently wrote, 95% of the time, backtrack bass is heard effectively way better and more coherently than a live bassist for extreme technical death metal at live shows. There are amazing bass players that prove this wrong because of their skill and popularity contributing to the show experience in general, but it's simply a fact otherwise that most live bassists cannot match the typical velocity and compression represented on modern records to support those background frequencies needed to represent a band's modern album mixes. Honestly, it's just progress of the genre to recognise this. And then a wee shrugging emoji.
He's right. Everything he says there is correct, right? But here's the really important thing. And it highlights, I think, what I was saying about Lucas's ideas of what a live band should be. Everything he said there is 100% correct, but it presupposes what live music is. And it presupposes it from a position that I don't think anybody would agree with. Because, yeah, of course, a live bass player is never going to sound as tight as the edited studio recordings, but neither's a live guitar player, neither's a live drummer. Like, so how far do you go with this when you talk about just pushing the genre to its max? Are we just going to turn up for shows and someone's just going to hit play on a recording? I know it's like a dumb argument to have to make, but
again, I don't think that's necessarily a fair way to categorize all bass players either. Like, there are players out there who the example that's come to my mind, I cannot remember the name of the album or the band, but they had the title Holocaust and it was a 3-word name. Holocaust was in the title. I don't remember exactly what it is, but they had some ridiculous bassist who was playing like slap bass on this death metal album.
Right.
And the bass on it is so tight. It was Chris that pointed this out to me. He's like, the bass is so tight to the click track.
Yeah.
It makes everything else sound out of time.
Right.
And it's really weird to listen to it because the bass is like great tone, cuts through, kind of clanky, a lot of presence as well as still having bass through it. And it's so tight. And I'm like, but surely that bucks what Lucas is saying. Like, you can't say that anyone who plays bass equals redundant in the band.
Well,
because of sonic reasons. Because I don't think that's true either.
Sure. No, but in fairness to Lucas, he covers his ass by saying that there are amazing bass players that prove that wrong. So I think that's a catch-all. He covers himself there by, you can point out great examples, and he's like, yeah, well, I acknowledge that. Generally speaking, though, if you're in a technical death metal band, you could just replace your bass player with a backing track live. But again, you could just replace any member of your band with a track live. And the thing that Chris said to me when I messaged him about this was, he's 100% right. Human bass players sound human.
That was the same comment on that thread, which is fantastic.
Bizarre.
It is bizarre, man. I don't understand how that can be logic for somebody. We want... it's bewildering me to the point where my brain's like slowing down trying to think of what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think you would, the words were just about to come out of your mouth, and I don't want to put those words into your mouth. But I feel what you're getting at is like somebody who thinks about live music like this, somebody who thinks about, what the end goal of your live music is to be. Like, who would look at it and go, sorry, bass player, I don't need you in this band because you can easily be replaced by the backing track type thing. Like, he obviously holds this opinion, and it's not for me to say that your opinion is wrong, but it is for me to say your opinion is dumb.
Yeah, because
where's the line?
Here's another bit of context in my mind that I can't quite reconcile, to take this seriously and come up with another answer. Was it a year, 2 years ago, we were talking about Lucas Mann with that video that you covered of him playing along, and then his rebuttal was about 40 minutes long, and at no point did he accurately cover what he was talking about at that point. He was pretending to play sweeps that were coming out the PA system perfectly when he wasn't playing them. Like, well, if your argument is that bassists in extreme technical death metal are going to be much better and more effective if they're just programmed, why are you out playing, Lucas? Why don't you just... Why don't you book the band as a live show and then just have somebody turn up with a USB stick?
Yeah. And in fairness to Lucas, I don't want anybody to feel that he's been misrepresented there. I'll stand up for him. He was playing the part. He absolutely was playing the part. But the video that was posted was someone on the front row filming with their camera. And Lucas claimed, well, I don't have any of my own guitar in my stage monitors. In fact, you can hear very little of me on the stage. But if you check out footage from other places in the venue, you can clearly hear that I am playing the part. And the part that you could hear there was a backing track. It was harmony, the harmony part. The issue that I had with that, and what Lucas did when he made that follow-up video, was he was essentially trying to disprove the accusations that Jared Dines had made towards him. But in doing that, he proved the accusations that I made, which is, see this video that you've posted, see this video you posted on your band page with a link to where you can buy tickets for your live shows. That's not you playing there. What you are seeing and what you are hearing are not the same thing. It's misrepresentative, it is fake guitar. And to this day, I've not taken that video down, and I never will, because I do not say a single fucking thing in that video that is incorrect. And it doesn't matter, every single day a Lucas Mann fan attacks me on that video. And I do not care, because it doesn't matter how emotional you get about it, I was fucking right.
They're much the same as, like, fucking, again, to bring him up, I feel as if, like, we're going to the same thing over and over, but with Charles Caswell as well.
Mm.
That last, not his last single, but the one, I think it was like Blood Orange or something it was called, and the lyrics was something like haters gonna hate me cause they suck, or something like that. And then the end of the song he's talking about how I hate me too. Fucking make up your mind. Nobody hates you because, first of all, the term hater does my tits in, right? I'm going to go off on a tangent here, because the minute you start discrediting any criticism as invalid, then you no longer have a grasp of reality in regards to the thing that you are now defending, because you're not listening to anyone else's perspective on limitations or things you could do better or things you could change.
Yeah, you're not addressing the criticism.
Exactly.
You are criticizing the motivations of the criticism, which is
so
dishonest.
Yeah, and it makes it really easy to just go, same as like you would dismiss someone by calling them crazy. Right away, you are invalid. That point is invalid, and therefore, no.
Yeah.
And I will say this, I think there is such a thing as a hater. I would probably even consider myself as a hater to some degree. And I don't mean that as in like I would just shit on them for the sake of it. The music's not in my cup of it anyway.
Sure.
My problem is the representation, same as yourself, I'm sure. That not profiteering, sorry, that's maybe a bit harsh, but presenting yourself as something on video with audio along with it, synced up together and made to look and sound as impressive as possible, that doesn't quite realistically represent your skills.
And then selling guitar lessons.
That's my point, right?
Yeah.
So, could be the best teacher in the world, never seen any of his content, could be the most ridiculously theoretically intelligent man on earth. People might go for lessons with him and they might even start fucking showing them bossa nova and western swing. Who knows, right? Like, genuinely, he could be a fantastic teacher. But that's not my problem. My problem is that the idea of haters and the careless dismissal of any criticism, any comment, any reaction that isn't OMG, this is perfect, falls under hater, and therefore you are shoe.
Yeah.
Nope, you are invalid. You are now discredited. Put in the sin bin. Go and sit in the step. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Like, no, I don't think so. Valid criticism has to be a thing, and it's shite to take. I mean, I've had comments and videos I've put on YouTube before, and it's people just taking the piss at you and like, you're terrible playing this and whatever else. And I'm like, right, cool, fair enough.
Sure.
I'm not here to argue with you. You want to shit on it, that's cool. You don't like it, sound. But this is what I do, and people that like it will like it, and people that don't sound. And I know you've had your fair run-ins with critics, and
oh yeah,
I mean, I would even say haters, considering you've attacked
Lucas
Man, and
yeah.
a lot of other people who have, I don't want to say rabid fan bases, but very loyal fans.
Yeah.
With misguided loyalty.
Sure.
And I don't mean that as in they shouldn't follow them, but I mean they're a bit too excessive.
Sure.
And the whole, this person said something bad, I'm going to get right on the comments.
I think you've made an awesome point there, though, because like some people criticize me for arguing with these people. Like, why don't you just let it go? I will describe a lot of those people as haters, right? But I won't describe them as haters and then just write them off. I'll describe them as haters because that's the position they're coming from. But I'll still engage with them. And you know, every day a Lucas Mann fan comes at me on that Lucas Mann video, and I will respond to every single one of them with this almost word for word the same fucking thing, which is, sorry, let's just rewind this a second. Can you timestamp for me in this video where I said something that is incorrect? And that's usually enough. That's usually enough for them to never respond. Because while they've come at it from a misinformed position, they've come at it from an emotional position, I'm not just going to write them off. If they have valid criticism, it's worth finding. And, you know, from time to time, someone finds some valid criticism on one of my videos. And I'm glad, like, things like this are pointed out to me when somebody's right about something I've either got wrong or something that I could improve upon. You know, I look to improve those moving forward. So, yeah.
And touching on one of your points as well, I think it's very important to progress as a human, as a species, as a person, as in personal development, and for the greater good of whatever the topic is, whether it's conversation or something that's happened.
Yeah.
You can't progress without discourse.
Sure.
We will never, ever progress if everyone just goes into this left versus right, us versus them. Yeah. And I'm not going into politics, but that's the polarizing effect of strong opinions.
Sure.
And on top of this, right, and again, not getting into politics, Facebook has kind of designed society to fall in this way. You are marketed to by an algorithm that knows the things that you don't like because you comment on them. So you interact with this stuff, this algorithm, this computer goes, well, he obviously isn't that keen on this because look at the engagement. It probably studies the exact language you use, the way you approach those conversations, how quickly you reply, all that stuff. And then that starts making its way into your feed. It's like having an AI that's feeding you medicine, and the more it realises that you're loving morphine because it's getting you out there and it's really affecting you, it starts pumping up and pumping up and pumping up. Before you know it, that's you're weaned on. It's horrible. It's really horrible, and it's easy to fall down that sheer cliff edge. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. You're totally right. It's a strange world we live in, and people, hate the thought of discussion and dealing with, facts or even opinions that are difficult to process. Thoughts that differ from your own. People feel that you're being personally attacked, and they don't want to grow. People just want to, accept their own preconceived biases and then move forward with their life and set fire to anybody that disagrees with them. Make sure that person can't be employed. That's what they want.
You're almost perfectly describing what's happening in the Scottish Government at the moment. I don't know how much you've been following it. No. How much anybody else is interested.
No politics. You said it twice. You said, no, I'm not going to talk politics. I'm not, and then you bring up a political subject. I'm going to bring something up.
Wait. I wasn't going to go into it, and I'll let you segue. Promise, right? But for anybody that's interested in politics at all,
I'm not going to go into it. Please allow me. Please allow me a second, just so I can explain to you what I was talking about.
No, I'm not getting into it. All I'm going to say is anybody that is interested in politics, just watch what's going on in the Scottish Government at the moment. It is a fucking mockery. Yeah. All right. Continue. Sorry.
So, of course, the Lucas Mann thing is always going to get me excited because it's one of my more popular videos, though the like to dislike ratio wouldn't give you that impression. And the fact that it's going to get me excited means that I will often skip over things that are important, skip over tradition. And in this show, I've realised that I've skipped over the tradition of reading fan mail first. So why don't we move on to read a couple of bits of fan mail?
Good segue. No, I think it was good for us to get the Lucas Mann thing out of the way. I'd really like to start with a good conversation.
Sure.
And it's always an interesting topic when you bring up Lucas Mann because he is the definition of polarising.
Yeah.
There are rabid, cult-like ROS fans, and then there's people that just can't stand them. And I find myself kind of in between. I don't know the guy.
I agree.
I don't like his Facebook posts, but I know plenty of people that post just to be fucking trolls.
Yeah.
Mark has been a perfect example.
Yeah.
You know
I mean, I love a good shit post. I love riling people up. I love upsetting people, and I respect Lucas for that. I'm absolutely fine with that. I think as an artist, I like him as well. There was that music video that they did. It might have been their last one, but
The Husk.
Yeah, with the alien. It was just unsettling, right? And to me, that's like artistic vision, and I respect that. And I respect the artistic vision of his music. Evidently, we don't necessarily disagree on the ethos of what it is to play live or what a live show is about. But yeah, like I don't want to, and we disagree on what is ethical when it comes to marketing and representation of what you are and what you're capable of. That's points where we differ, but still interesting to talk about him. So.
Aye, especially like he just likes to surround himself in controversy.
Yeah.
I'm one of the best technical death metal writers of the modern era, and I'm still young as fuck. Change my mind. You mind that post?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just there's so much. Anyway, right. Enough Lucas Mann. Let's talk about people that
matter.
I mean, we probably could reach out to Lucas Mann and get him on, but I don't know if I'd want to.
Oh no, he is not a fan of mine.
Well, understandable. Anyway. Let's move on. So we'll talk about more important people, our fans, people that want to contribute to, not more important people, that's really horrible. These are the underlings, we'll ignore them, they're the proles. Let's move on to the good guys, the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get two to go through. One quite short and one a good length, and they both look pretty good.
Yeah.
So Ryan wrote the first fan mail we got in, which starting off says, just wondering if you guys have ever bought a guitar just to emulate one player, band, or even to learn one song. As an example, I bought a 7-string only because I wanted to learn Meyerland by Olivia. Obviously, it's found more use since then, but that song is the reason I bought it. I'm sure a lot of Dean MLs were bought only to learn Pantera, 8 strings from Meshuggah, Stripe Series EVHs for, well, be well, gents, Ryan. Hi, Ryan. Thanks very much for writing in. The answer is yes. I'm sure it's the same for Levi, because I know that he's got that Mick Thompson up his loft.
Yeah. It's so much deeper than that, though. When I read the start of this question, just wondering if you guys have ever bought a guitar just to emulate one player, band, or learn one song. Well, 2 seconds. Allow me to pick up my main guitar, my Telecaster, which is clearly a Danny Gatton clone. I am, and we've talked about this on the show before, I am so heavily influenced by what players that I love play. I've broken out of that over the last 5 years, but up until when I started playing Vigier, which was in 2013, every single guitar that I bought prior to that, every single one of them was to emulate a player that I loved and admired. And it's as simple as that. The Vigier was me breaking out of that. But to be fair, I went with the Vigier route because I wanted something that was a little bit different, but also I loved Bumblefoot. So there was still that element of trying to emulate what he played. Now
You'd also played the Sean Lane for a bit, hadn't you?
Yeah, I had a Sean Lane, but I've said this many times, like I'm not really a Sean Lane fan. So I considered getting another one of those actually last week, because I liked the guitar and I kind of miss having it. But it wouldn't be
the Excalibur, isn't it?
It's just a Sean Lane Excalibur. The regular.
I thought it was an Excalibur Ultra.
No, my red one is an Excalibur Ultra.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so that one I didn't actually get for the artist, but just generally speaking, I've broken out of that now. Well, the Mayonnaise guitars, like I don't play those because other people play them. The Ormsby guitars, don't play those because other people play them.
Don't kid on, you don't play them because I play them. I know it.
Mike, my hero. So yeah, I
certainly not for guitar.
I've totally been a sucker for this, and I still am to a degree. You know, I did have that Brent Mason Telecaster on order, and that's been cancelled. But I have never bought a bit of gear in order to learn one song or emulate one song. It's always been, I've just been influenced by what my heroes play, and I want to have my stuff look like what my heroes play, because there's that emotional attachment. I think of the records, I think of the live performances, and I see them with a certain instrument, and I want to see that instrument when I pick up my guitar. So what have you bought?
What have I not bought? I owned a Dymo Flame.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I actually traded an amp for that, an amp and a cab, I believe, for the Dymo Flame. I was kind of into Pantera at the point. I just wanted to play one because I thought an ML was a cool shape and I quite fancied trying it. That was neither my favourite nor my least favourite graphic of them, so I wasn't too bothered. Surprisingly good guitar. I like the MLs, they were well balanced. I just couldn't get along with the shorter scale length and the 22 frets. And realising that I was not Dimebag too. There's only so long you can go and not get bored. Paul Gilbert inspired me to go down the Ibanez route when I was younger, not necessarily buying one of his signatures, but getting an RG of some kind.
Yep.
I've had multiple RGs and different factors. I think the way my brain's probably worked is watching people play things and seeing how comfortable they are with the shape and the neck size, etc., and then thinking that would probably be a comfortable guitar to play. Having a wee look at the specs and checking the radius of the neck and blah blah blah. One that caught me off guard that I bought that I fucking hated was the BC Rich Stealth, the Chuck Schuldiner, signature.
Yeah.
And I thought, how can you get this wrong? It's basically a death metal Telecaster. It's got one pickup and it's high gain. It's a Tunematic bridge. It's neck through, one volume, no other fucking about, no lock and trem, dead easy. Just 24 frets of ebony, and that's you. You plug it in and just play it.
Yeah.
And the neck was like a fucking baseball bat. Like, I'm no joking. The radius was like that.
Yeah.
It was just.
Oh, that's interesting though, isn't it? Because that, you know, if that's what the artist wants, it's sometimes interesting to pick up a guitar that's for an artist and go, this is totally not what I would have expected it to be. This isn't for me, and it's interesting that it is for you.
Yeah.
I was kind of apprehensive about the Brent Mason because it's got a hard V profile for the neck.
Quite uncommon.
Yeah, which isn't that uncommon. And I do remember playing an Eric Johnson Strat that had a V profile on the back of the neck, which again I wasn't a big fan of.
It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
Mm.
One of the few proper V profiles I've played was a Dan Smith era Fender
Right.
Strat, an 84, I want to say, I think it was. The trem was routed out the front, so there was no routing in the back.
Right.
And there was no routing in the back for electrics either. So the swimming pool route was just how it was with the scratch plate.
Right.
You had a volume, a tone, and then the third point where you would usually have your second tone was actually where the jack went in. The trem was front routed and mounted.
Wild.
And it had a soft V, or quite a hard V actually, neck. It's a really, really interesting guitar.
Mm.
Not necessarily something that people would jump on. I think
Sure.
that they're rare enough to be interesting to have, and if you like a V profile neck, then maybe you'll keep it and enjoy it. But it's probably more a collector's thing now because of the era of Fender that it represents.
Yeah. Which fits really well in with the next question that we'll get onto in a second. But
oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah, honestly, the list is so long of guitars that I've bought just because I wanted to be like the artist. I've had about 4 guitars that were all Paul Gilbert guitars. I've had, the John 5, which great guitar.
That was a great guitar.
Also, if everybody could go and tweet at John 5 and Instagram and tag John 5 and tell him to respond to my DMs because I'm trying to get him for an interview. I think, who better to talk to John 5 than the Tally guy. But I'm getting everybody that he follows. I've got all these people that John 5 follows, tagging me in posts and vouching for me. So John, fucking let's make it happen, son. We could have a great conversation about tallies and shit.
I would love to watch that. I think that would be really good. You two would probably hit it off. Have you spoke to John 5 before?
Nope.
No, because anytime I've ever mentioned bands to you, and it still happens sometimes. You need to check this out, and this guy, and you'd be like, "Oh, I know him. I studied with him." Or
yeah,
he was like the course of the year below me, or and you're like, "How do you not know, man? What the fuck?"
Well, I have a connection to John 5 in that many moons ago, many years ago, I was in the John 5 fan club, the official John 5 fan club. And while I was in the John 5 fan club, he did a Guitarist of the Month competition. And I entered that once and won his Guitarist of the Month competition. And I have a signed certificate from John 5 calling me his Guitarist of the Month from way back, 2008 it's dated.
That's cool, man.
And he only ran that competition for 2 months because after the first guy won, the competition and then I won the next month, nobody wanted to really enter anymore. And let me be super clear, I was not a good player in 2008. So it gives you an idea of the standard of guitar players that were really signed up to John's fan club. But yeah, I thought that, again, tagging John in the certificate from 2008 that he'd signed would be a nice bait for us to catch up and talk about music. Especially as I get to feed his ego and say, I was in that fan club because you were a really big influence on me. You kind of changed a lot about my playing and the direction that I thought about music. And although you're not a country player, you gave me an interest in checking out some country players and, look where I am now type thing. So it would be really nice to have a conversation with John. Anyway, what else have I bought? John 5 guitar. When I got the Sean Lane, I did think Sean was a lot cooler than I really think he is now.
I don't think you need to be a Sean Lane stan to appreciate that he is one of the most unbelievably gifted guitarists that ever existed. There's a lot of his music that I don't get.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's really good. Get You Back's a really beautiful song. And then you've got Grey Piano's Flying, which has got some elements of melody and then some elements of absolute lunacy.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call myself a big Sean Lane fan. I don't think I would ever put Powers of 10 on every single day.
Sure. I like the second album's Tritone Fascination, I'm sure. And there's a song in there called Hard Case. I think Hard Case is a belter of a song. I like that. So, the Michael Romeo guitar, I had that as well. And it's a long list. If there's an artist that I've enjoyed for a long period of time, I've either bought a guitar to emulate them or I've wanted to buy their guitar. Let's just put it that way. So,
I think
yeah.
There's only really 2 signatures one signature that I would have wanted when I was younger and never got my hands on. And it's a ESP SC 607B, which is the Steph Carpenter 7-string baritone. And it would have been the natural one. Reason being, that was the guitar that Devin went for before he was with Framus, and that was one that he played for years and years,
Right.
and I always thought Steph Carpenter's guitars are always fucking cool, and they are. You can't change my mind.
Yeah.
Devin Townsend likes them so much that he's playing one of Steph's.
Yeah.
Like straight off the line. I think it was. I don't think it was an LTD, but it wasn't like he'd taken Steph's and done other things to it. That was what he was playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, cool. If Steph Carpenter can have a signature that Devin Townsend plays religiously, it's probably going to be a solid guitar. And I never got it. What else did I have? I had a...
I'm literally eBaying for something right now in the hopes that I can find. You just kind of
you
reminded
can buy
me.
it again.
Yeah.
What else did I have? I had the Krankenstein Junior Head, the mini crank. And I didn't get that because I thought I wanted to be Dimebag. But I had played one and thought this is one of the most obscenely high gain amps I've ever played, and it's like a lunchbox thing. And that kind of lent into me buying that. Being the Dimebag signature, I knew I was going to get a lot of gain from it, and probably a really good active EQ.
Yeah. Because
whether you like Dimebag's tone or not, for somebody that clearly scooped all the mids out his tone, he still cut through like nothing else because he knew what he was doing with the Neve preamps, backstage, etc.
Yep.
For him that doesn't know the background, there were some clever moves done, and I think a big part of that was Diamond Vinny's heritage with her dad being a studio engineer.
Sure.
I bought an 8-string.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to play After the Burial songs. Funnily enough, not with Sugar, After the Burial. After the Burial was more technical in the sense there are more notes, but it was way more discernible 4/4 melody, timing, hooks.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I could definitely learn some with Sugar. And then I sat down to learn Straws Pulled at Random and Stenga and realised that, like, I don't have... I just can't do it. I don't. I just can't do it. It's not going to happen. I don't have a degree in theoretical physics, or I just don't have the brain power to work this out.
For anyone wondering what I just had a quick eBay for. It was based on Mike mentioning ESP because a guitar that I've always wanted in my collection it's a Japanese ESP. It's the Brett Garsed signature.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah,
Did you see Conor McGowan's recent guitar?
No.
He's bought an ESP that looks almost exactly like the Brett Garsed, and that was a big reason why he said somebody's like, that's like the Brett Garsed copy signature, and he was like, this is as close as I can get.
Yeah. I've passed up opportunities to buy those several times over the years, and
the Brett Garsed ones?
The Brett Garsed ones, yeah. If one of those popped up for sale, if somebody could do me one of those for like £1,200, I'd buy one for £1,200. I think now.
What was the other guitar that you said you tried to get your hands on for years? Was it an Ibanez George Benson? Because we were talking to Joe about it, Joseph.
No, it's the Ibanez Joe Pass.
Joe Pass, that's right.
The JP20, the Ibanez JP20, which is a JP20, JP10, no JP20, which is an odd one to want to buy because they were garbage by all accounts. Even when Joe was endorsed by them and playing them, he wasn't really playing it. But yeah, that was. I remember seeing him play that on one of his instructional videos, and at the time I was a huge Ibanez fan. I'm still a huge Joe Pass fan. I quite like the idea of getting one of those. Probably less than the Garsed ESP.
That's fair enough. It was just because, as I said, like when we went that road trip down to Manchester, and we went past Joe's house, and obviously he had one, and you were like, is that what that is? And I've never really seen you have that like eyes dilating lust for a guitar. It was really cool to see. Totally unusual.
Yeah, happens a lot. Okay, thank you very much for your question, Ryan. Let's move on to David Imrie's question.
I hope we answered your question, mate. We definitely went off on a tangent on it. I like how Levi's like, we'll try and do a quick question because I'm a bit worried about X and Y, and we're now at like 40 odd minutes and we've done one fan mail.
We'll power through.
We're fine. So the next one's from David Imrie. David is always in the comments on the videos. Does he contribute in the live shows as well? I've missed the last couple and I've kind of been a bit absent. He may well have done.
I see David everywhere though, so it's hard to keep track of where people engage with. I just know the names and faces that I see on the road.
I feel the same. So with that in mind, this is a really good wee segue for me to say, if you don't already, Monday nights, 9 PM, Monday Night Guitar Geek Club, come and join us. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to Levi, leave a comment, join the chat, insult me, whatever. You know what I mean? Just let's have fun. Anyway, so we'll go on to David's because this is quite long and I'm going to read right through it. Alright chaps, just wanted to share bargain gear joy, but also ask a serious question. I'm always for bargain gear joy.
Right
I'd like
after
to
you
ask...
said, I'm just going to read it all the way through this.
I know, I know. I'd like to ask the opinion of yourselves and the wider community if Fender are known for being a bit crap in the QC department, particularly when it comes to amps. I recently came across a customer returned Fender 68 Custom Deluxe Reverb on eBay, listed by Gear for Music for $499. The RRP of this amp is £1,100. Sorry, that was pounds, not dollars. The RRP of this amp is £1,100. It was said to have buzzing issues. I've been getting cocky with a soldering iron recently, so I decided to take it on as a project. To put things in context, the most expensive amp I owned at this point was a Black Star HD5, so I was kind of bricking it a bit, but I figured that learning experience would be worth it, and I could probably sell it on without being raped too badly if I needed to. When it arrived, boy was it buzzing alright. It sounded like someone having a turntable battle with Spanish air traffic control over a broken radio. I'm pleased to report, thanks to some online forums and a bit of reading, I've managed to get the amp to a usable state, and I'm over the moon with my bargain amp. It's still got a bit of hiss to it, so I've got a little tweaking to do to fettle it completely, but I'm having a lot of fun learning as I go. What I'm not pleased to report is that through researching these amps online, the problems this amp had don't seem uncommon. Lots of people reporting similar issues with all of the amps in the series. Many techs reporting they are regularly fixing these amps when bought new, and customers report returning the amp several times to receive replacements with the same issues. Bearing in mind this amp has been in production for about 20 years, I find it pretty unforgivable that Fender is letting so many poorly built amps out into the wild, especially at that price point. We all know amps can be delicate to ship, but entire batches unusable on arrival? You would think if basic checks were being done at the factory, this couldn't possibly happen on such a scale. We've had a fair few QC gaffes from Gibson in the last few years. Was I a fool for thinking Fender was any better? If you don't mind a shameless plug, I uploaded a vid to YouTube where I talk about the exact nature of the repairs for anyone that's interested. Fuck the Tories and fuck sectarianism, you Scottish bastard. Lots of love, David Imrie. David, that's a great email. Thanks very much, mate. Good question.
Yeah.
Personal experience of dealing with Fender, and this is from a retail and sales sort of approach. Fender were always pretty good about this stuff when I was still in that sector, which was up till about 2017, 2018, I think. So things might have changed in the last couple of years, and I think that for any brand operating in the UK, whether they're based here or not, I think Brexit has probably had a massive effect on the availability and quality of parts, and the feasibility of getting those parts and then finding suitable replacements. How much that's got to contribute to the QC issues ongoing, I don't know. It'd be hard to quantify without seeing exactly how many have been returned and if that spiked pre and post Brexit and blah blah blah. But I haven't really seen anything bad that was issues with Fender, to be honest. I remember when we dealt with Fender, the rep was always really good. The brand were good at getting stuff to you. There was only really one or two times that I felt they were a bit fly, but that was more on the retail side than anything. So wouldn't cause issues to customers. That's basically the way to put it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I like you comment on the fly thing. I have no experience of dealing with any companies like this in terms of retail. I have experience of dealing with companies like this in terms of marketing and advertising, working with magazines. And Fender and Gibson are both just the tip top of arrogance when it comes to those things. You're trying to sell adverts to these people, and they're like, "We don't need to advertise with Fender." I literally heard someone at Fender say that. We don't need to advertise with Fender.
They're probably told that. It's like, don't accept that you need to get into conversations about buying marketing. Like, you work for one of the world's biggest prestigious brands. Yeah. You're probably one of the very few household guitar brand names.
Yeah. It misses the point, though, because you should be advertising not just because you're Fender and people need to hear about your guitars. You should be advertising so you are making sure that people are seeing your advertising along with the advertising of your competitors. If you take the attitude of we're Fender, therefore we don't need to advertise, well, guess what? All of your competition is spending a lot of money on advertising, and the reason they have been able to build up as big as they have is because you've not had, speaking from a purely like horrible capitalist perspective, because you've not had the sense to strangle the industry and make sure that people can't find anything other than your product. It would be entirely possible for you to buy up every single bit of advertising space and make sure there wasn't any room for anybody else to advertise. Of course, I'm glad you haven't done that, but this attitude of we're Fender, we don't need to advertise, you always need to advertise. But to answer the question, the reason I went with this question, aside from it being David, and if you're a regular interactor with the show, I'm more than happy to read your fan mail. The reason I went with this is because I think it's only fair. He's totally right. There have been a lot of gaffes from Gibson, and we love drawing attention to them. And I think in the interest of being a little bit fairer and making sure that both sides of the coin are seen, if you like, I don't want people to think that Gibson's this terrible brand and Fender's a perfect one. There's nothing could be further from the truth. As we well know, I'm operating under a hashtag fuck Fender mentality at the moment because they couldn't pull their finger out of their arse and get me my Brent Mason telly. And that's when I paid full retail price for it. It was on order. I noticed they managed to find one to give to Daniel Donato for free, but they couldn't provide one to a customer that would be doing better advertising for them than Daniel Donato will be doing. And not from a perspective of I'm bigger than Daniel Donato, I'm absolutely not, but from a perspective of I will be playing this guitar in all of my videos and I will be doing Brent Mason content using this guitar. Great person to have one of those guitars. Couldn't get one at full retail price. So I'd say that's a bigger issue for Fender. But I think it's probably worth considering, David, that there's the kind of vocal minority aspect that comes into this. Like, you're talking about the problems that this amp has had. When people have this amp and they love it, they don't write anything about it. I've always said this to like Haley when she'd be booking hotels or anything we'd be going to do. She'd always check reviews and she's like, it's got a lot of negative reviews. And I'm like, when was the last time you went and did something, enjoyed yourself, and then went, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and yell or whatever and write a review saying how much I enjoyed this. The only time people go and do that, the only time people scream and shout is when they're unhappy with something. So I'm not saying that they're not valid criticisms. I'm just saying it's very easy to misjudge how common the issues actually are. If you could send me 1,000 people that had all had issues with the amp in the grand scheme of things versus the amount of these amps that had actually sold, it's still quite a small percentage. So I wouldn't suggest that it's a huge risk buying one of these, but I'm also not saying that it's acceptable. But yeah, I personally speaking, I've owned a few Fenders, not too many. I had a couple of Mexican Fenders. I had a Mexican Strat. To be fair, I didn't like that guitar. It didn't sound right, but I modded it pretty aggressively. My main Telecaster, it's a Fender. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. But my ethos when it comes to guitars like that is I don't want them to be flawless. I want them to be dirty little bitch guitars. So, and that's what that guitar is, a horrible little dog of a guitar. So yeah, if you're looking for top quality, you can't expect it from Fender, just like you can't expect it from Gibson. They're too big. You go to a smaller brand that has enough care for the product. You go for an Ormsby because you know that everything that comes off the line is going to be good. And again, problems are going to slip through. We're seeing problems with the solar guitars at the moment. KDH has been covering issues with QC and solar guitars. And yeah,
I feel sorry for Ola in that regard. It seems to be since he couldn't get to the factory to do the QC himself, things have slipped. So I want to give him a fair opportunity to sort that out. Because I don't think for a second that Ola's the type of person that would turn his back on fans. Sure. He's built that brand literally through people being interested and it being like, correct me if I'm wrong, but my opinion is that it's like the Rob Chapman route but done right.
Yeah. No, totally. I was going to mention Rob and say there's been QC issues with his brand, and to be fair, he has sought to improve that, but Rob has never had a reputation for being a master of gear, quite like Ola has. So
no, absolutely,
Ola will absolutely fix it, but still the chances of you getting a bad Solar are probably a lot lower than the chances of you getting a Fender that's got a few issues, because who really knows, who can trust a company as big as that is what I would say. It's why
even
I like the smaller, more boutique.
Yeah, well, it's not really a direct comparison either. Think about how much volume Fender are shipping as well. Like, there's always going to be more when there is such quantity.
Yes.
And sometimes they'll be worse because there is so much to go through.
Yeah.
Then maybe 2,000 guitars, one or two don't get the full care and effect they should get. Who knows?
So I'm going to move on from that. Like I say, I want to move the show along relatively quickly from here. But big
Yes.
thank you, David, for that. Mike,
Yes.
can you tell me about the 16-in-mono story?
Yes. So I just presented this to Levi and sprung it on him earlier on. Thought, you know what? Fuck it. This guy's getting dropped in it like it does to me.
Yeah.
And this is fantastic, right? This is just such a medal of mindfuck. All right. So 16Inmono is a YouTube channel that does a lot of backing tracks and covers of stuff and a lot of good content. He's a good friend of Kieran's.
22,000 subscribers, if for anyone that's looking for a sense of perspective of how big a channel we're talking.
He used to work with 10-second songs as well, I believe.
Right.
I think he did some backing tracks and stuff for him from what Kieran told me. And he's got a lot of his other own content. So I've seen him do covers of stuff. Good sound and stuff. He's obviously either a professional or an in-training engineer. And his stuff is really good. Anyway, long story short, he posted on Twitter, I believe, maybe a couple of weeks ago, saying the new Architects is a bit weird. So Architects dropped a new album and all the fans were being a bit funny about it and didn't really like it. Or certainly there was a large number of people saying it's not the same since Tom, the original songwriter, passed away with cancer. So obviously somebody else is going to have to do the writing. Tom's no longer in the band. And people were making comments that didn't like it, right? Long story short. So 16Inmono, forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name, decided to jump on this and tweeted saying something like, this new Architect song just sounds weird, right? And it was uploaded as Architect's hidden track, new album or whatever, right? Or untitled track.
Sure. And
people were away to listen to it, obviously. And it comes in, sounds very similar to an Architect song from the newest album. And I mean, like, very, very similar. And then the vocals come in, and it's Kieran singing, and it's the lyrics to Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up in the style of Sam Carter, their vocalist. So essentially, they had written a song, or 16Inmono had written a song that sounds almost exactly like, but isn't the Architects or any songs from that album.
To be clear, for clarification there, you keep saying sounds almost exactly like. Are you talking about sounds like a song that the band could have released, or sounds almost exactly like one of their actual songs?
It's heavily influenced by one of their actual songs,
right.
But none of the stems or riffs or patterns or the actual parts of this untitled track that 16Inmono put out was actually created by Architects. They're similar, they're not the same. Right. They're not. It's not like he's played a riff and then Kieran's done the vocals.
And it couldn't be deemed as a cover with different lyrics.
No, because it's not their song. Okay. It's very similar to one of their songs, but it's not their song. And it also isn't a remix of their original stems. It's not something that he has manipulated part of the original recording to make something different. He's not played one riff to mislead MD. He's just wrote something that sounds like it.
Yeah.
And that to me, it's not even fair use. It's not the same thing. You can't really claim copyright on something that's not the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't usurp the need for the original. It doesn't overtake it. Anyway, right? So this was a very elaborate and funny rickroll, as you can imagine, right? Because it's a full cover, or sorry, like a full song that's meant to sound like Architects, in the style of Architects. Kieran doing the vocal in the style of Sam Carter, but it's rickroll. And essentially, Architects and their label, or one of the parties involved, have seen this, got rather upset, and hit 16Inmono with a copyright strike.
Boofed.
Right?
I don't think bands realise how deadly this is for your reputation in 2021. Like everybody that you rely on to buy your music, you know what they engage with more than your music? Online content creators. And do you know what online content creators have programmed them all to understand? DMCAs, copyright strikes and things like that fucking kill the things that they love. Mm-hmm. You will never ever, in a scenario like this, be able to send a false DMCA and not get massive backlash from the online community.
So Architects, or their label, Epitaph, I'm not sure which one of launched the or lodged the copyright strike.
Yeah.
But the comment is that the content used as architects for those that wish to exist. I think that's the track that it sounds like, but isn't. Just clarifying that from an insider source, someone who was involved in the production of this. This is not a remix. This does not have any parts of the original stems put into it. This is a complete and utter new iteration, at least mechanically. And it isn't the same song, right? It's just Kieran and Sixteeninmono taking the piss, right? Now, the copyright strike details are, this is a mockery of the LP. It explicitly lists it's from that album, but it isn't. This is not the band. This is Never Gonna Give You Up, reworked with parts of Architect's music to sound like it. So, my main criticism of this is they're saying this is reworked parts of the Architect's music to sound like it, and this is not the band. This is not from that album. It's not. It's a mockery, right? It's not parts of the album cut up. It's original tracks. And you can't use copyright strike claims to say this is not the band.
Yeah, there's a comment I saw on this that essentially said this is the first time I've seen a DMCA used to claim something isn't ours.
Aye, like, it's ours backwards. And it's just like, I don't know if Kieran's pal's done anything to challenge it or if he's just waiting to draw him off. But
he has filed a counter notification, which he'll absolutely win.
It's just... the comments on it are great. Like, when you do a Rick roll so well that recording labels get jealous. Clout 100. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. It's not your music. It sounds... You know what, right? Kieran, the track's not online anymore, obviously. It disappeared, right? Kieran found it on his Discord channel, or in his files in his phone, and let me hear it. And this is probably going to upset quite a lot of people who like Architects. It's better than any Architect song I've ever heard. No, I'm not being silly. The production's better.
Sure.
The riffs are obviously supposed to sound like that song.
Yeah.
But it's got a better... just total personal opinion, it sounds better rhythmically. I think that the parody sounds better. That's just... Sue me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny because I need to do that I'm not a lawyer thing. Again, Teespring. Check out our Teespring. We do have an I'm not a lawyer t-shirt. So I'm going to be just as bad as the people that I'm going to criticize. But when you read the comments in this, there's just so many, legal experts just firing off their legal opinions. And
not any different to us.
Well, but yes and no. I could be wrong about this. They could be getting their legal opinions from a different place than me. But I think a lot of people, way too many people, get their legal opinions from YouTubers that have opinions. I'm a YouTuber, I make content, I know how fair use works. If you get your legal opinions on how copyright works from a YouTube channel like fucking Bearing, then you don't know shit about copyright, right? I get my legal opinions on how copyright works from copyright attorneys that do YouTube content. So, I'm constantly referencing guys like Leonard French, who's a copyright lawyer. So I'll sit and watch him for hours, talk about actual copyright cases that he's working on and talking about the perspectives of, the law on copyright infringement. And he's somebody that doesn't show bias when it comes to things like this. He made a video looking at, Thunderfoot is currently being sued for copyright infringement, and Thunderfoot is a prime example of somebody that thinks he knows the law just because he's a big influential YouTuber. And Leonard French, knows Thunderfoot, I want to say reasonably well. They know of it. Let's go with know of each other. And Leonard did a video because Thunderfoot had asked him to talk about it. And why Thunderfoot is doing that is because he wants a big lawyer to do a video saying Thunderfoot's in the right here. So the person that's suing Thunderfoot will go, oh, okay, well, a lawyer said that I'm wrong, so maybe I'll walk out of this. But Leonard French did his video and said, no, at its core, I think actually Thunderfoot's probably in the wrong on this one. I think he will probably lose this. The only thing that I would say to the other party in this is a big, expensive legal case with very, very little payoff for either party. This will cost you considerably more than you will make in terms of damages. At most, you're going to make $750 in damages, and it's going to cost you $20,000 to pursue this case. So, I would recommend both parties reach a settlement outside of court for this one. But point is, go to actual copyright attorneys and get copyright attorneys' opinions on things like this. This is This seems absolutely fucking ludicrous, and it bugs me because filing a false DMCA claim is a crime. It's as simple as that. Filing a false DMCA claim is a crime. And it bugs me so much because whoever at Epitaph filed this, they will do it with complete impunity. Nothing will happen to them. Absolutely nothing will happen to them, because in order for something to happen to them, 16Inmono would need to lawyer up and have enough legal clout to take on a record label. And that right there, I'm trying not to be political with it, but that right there highlights the inequality that wealth brings into scenarios like this. 16Inmono can do fuck all about this because he doesn't have the money. And although, like, even Kieran, if something like this happened to Kieran, his YouTube channel is fucking huge. The amount of influence that he has is probably bigger than this record label, but he doesn't have the same level of money as the record label does. And therefore, if something like this happened to Kieran, Kieran would just have to go, I guess that's just the way it is. I guess that's the way it is.
Plenty.
Yeah. So
I think you're right. Sometimes you're totally at the mercy of who's got the money, regardless of whether you're right or not. This will be an interesting one to watch and see where it goes.
Nothing will happen of it. The claim will go away, and the strange thing is the only place that you might potentially be able to argue the record label have some point is trademark infringement. Using the architect's name in order to bring traffic towards your content. You are using architects; it's a trademarked name. You're using their artwork. You could potentially argue that, again, not a lawyer, but obviously you could potentially argue that there's trademark infringement, but it wouldn't be a very strong case for trademark infringement.
And I don't think that really would go under copyright strike. Surely that would be a cease and desist.
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
Wouldn't it be like, take this down because it's not the band, not saying we're claiming this as ours because it isn't the band?
And also, like, you can file claims on YouTube for trademark infringement. Lance Benedict obviously knew that he could never get me for copyright, so he tried to have my videos taken down for trademark infringement. And the reason he tried to have them taken down for trademark infringement is because in my interview with him, we used the TTM logo in it. And he's like, that infringes upon my trade. And again, that's not how trademark works. So while I say the only place you might have an argument, you absolutely wouldn't, because this isn't, while they are bringing people into the video based on the concept that this is an architect's product, it's not something people are paying for. You're not selling them anything. It's a click. You're taking people's time in order to bait and switch them.
Speaking of bait and switch and Lance Benedict promising and not delivering, very good segue in there. Let's move on to Lacuna Coil.
Look at you moving the show along.
Well, I know that you want to try and get it done.
Yeah.
Thanks. Lacuna Coil advertised a live stream concert and fans watched them stand in silence. Now, from the outset, I just want to put this out there. They did market this, but this was free.
Yes.
When I first read it, I was like, wait a fucking minute.
Exactly the same.
I read the context and went, nah, right, okay. Different, genuinely different story when this is put in place. For anybody that isn't aware, I'll quickly read through and we can have a chat about the fun and games. So Lacuna Coil participated along with 130 other Italian artists and venues in an initiative called L'Ultimo Concerto, the last concert. Probably butchered that. To bring attention to the struggling live scene in the country and the uncertain future for many venues. With many venues struggling to stay afloat, 4 Italian organisations, Keep On Live, Arche, Asso Musica and Live DMA, created this campaign to bring awareness to the uncertain future of live shows. Lacuna Coil offered these comments in their participation. You were expecting to see a live show while we just stood in silence, the group said. It's not a bad joke. This is the situation of live clubs in Italy. Places where we got to meet many of you. It's with their bitter taste in our mouths, with this bitter taste in our mouths that we're asking you for your support. For them, a live show with no music is not a live show. A silent live club is not a live club. Thanks for being part of this, for your support, and for being there in this very moment, which hopefully will be a turning point. From now on, we just want to talk about the next live show.
Yeah, I support this. I think I don't see what there is to be annoyed about with this, and
Mhm.
and annoyingly, lots of their fans are pissed off by this. And it's like, it was a free concert. You got the statement that they were making within the first couple of seconds, and when they made this, it's. I don't want to insult people with the concept of low intelligence, but it just feels so unbelievably fucking smooth brain.
I don't think it's smooth brain. I think it's selfish.
No, because I think the selfishness would have to come in like having a willing understanding of it, and then still being pissed off about it. Like, I think
that's exactly where we're at, though. Sorry,
there are some
continue.
people that will take that position, but I think there will be way too many people that will just miss what Lacuna Coil are desperately trying to say to their fans here. They're looking for help and support for the live industry, and rather than people going, yeah, we need to worry about where this industry is going to be a year from now, they're just going, but I didn't get my free show. Like, what they did is so much more important than a free show.
Mhm.
I like that they went to the effort of getting all glammed up for it.
If you're going to make a statement, do it right.
Yeah.
And absolutely stand behind them in that regards. It's good that they're standing up for not necessarily their own incomes, because they'll have money coming in from merch and whatever else. Lacuna Coil are admittedly a big band.
Yeah.
But the fact that they are looking at the bigger picture, like this is a big community. It's not just about I can't play gigs anymore. It's about that then means that there's sound technicians out of work.
Yeah.
There's lighting technicians out of work. There's stagehands. There's venue owners. There's barmen bar staff. There's people that deal with the logistics. There's hire companies out. Like, there's the network that surrounds live music is ridiculous. And the amount of people that work super hard with not a lot of tangible return. Way more of it is like personal or emotional or sentimental return, or even exposure, shall we say, because just being honest, the quickest way that I've seen people grow that sense is doing a very good professional job and basically undermining the bigger companies, showing them I can do it on a better budget than you, or a smaller budget than you, or whatever. But none of that's happening.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because like, even with people that I know that are looking to work in the music business, the thing one of my trademark things I'll say with students when I'm mentoring them in helping them to get their foot in the business and carve out a living for themselves is you have to understand that the term music business is two words and only one of them is music. And then I always like to make the joke that, and the word business has more letters in it, so it's more important. Just generally speaking, you have to care about business, but if you are just a consumer of music, I can understand why you've never put any thought into the business side of things. So I can understand why, from an ignorant perspective, you would be a fan of Lacuna Coil, see this and be annoyed by it, but it's then on you to think about what it is they're trying to say.
So it's funny you mentioned ignorance. Again, perfect segue.
Oh,
Maroon 5's Adam Levine.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Before you segue on that, I just want to throw. I like there's an additional comment on here that should give the UK scene a bit of perspective of how the rest of the outside world sees us. So at the end of this article, it says there have been nearly 3 million confirmed cases in Italy and over 97,500 deaths from coronavirus, the second highest in Europe after England, and the seventh highest tally in the world. So to the outside world, the UK is England.
Yeah. And we're also the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because we've got it wrong.
Yeah. I'm sure that does include Scotland. I could be wrong on that.
I'd be surprised, yeah.
It's interesting. Maybe it's supposed to read the UK after the UK, or maybe it's correct. Maybe the second highest in Europe after just England.
It'll be the UK. I don't imagine they report the figures independently in that regards.
Yeah. So sorry, please continue. Adam Levine of Maroon 5.
Is it Levine? Or Levine?
I don't know. Doesn't matter.
I've always said Levine. Yeah, it doesn't matter because his opinion is there aren't any bands anymore, which is wrong. Just simple as that.
This is your classic misrepresentative title, though. It really is.
He's went from. Well, to be fair, I didn't actually read through the article, so maybe I've got it wrong. But
you've got it exactly how they wanted you to get it.
yeah, of course. The context has been removed, so it looks like Mann, who was once in band at the ground level, has hit such a level of success that he's completely detached from reality.
Yeah,
which it could have been the case or not. I mean, he went from writing tunes to being on telly shows with Lady Gaga to.
And I just want to state for the millionth time, probably not said it nearly that many times on the show, Maroon 5, not now, but Maroon 5 used to be a great band.
Absolutely.
Songs
This
About
Love
Jane.
as a tune, She Will Be Loved, another banger.
Songs About Jane isn't my favourite, but I honestly think their second album, it won't be soon before long, I'm sure it's called, is one of my favourite kind of funky pop rock records. There are some great tunes on that album, some really great chords, some great harmony, some great vocal melodies. James Valentine, the guitar player, absolutely killing it on that album. Great record. Go and check it out.
Can't deny that they have had some incredible songs and done some incredible pieces of music. Anyway, I'll read through this article quickly. This was on Music Radar, and it was 3 days ago. So, the hitmaker laments a bygone era, but is he missing out? Call Adam Levine a pop star, the kind of contemporary, globally successful artist who appears as a guest on other huge artist singles, or vice versa, with the latest Megan Thee Stallion collaboration, Beautiful Mistakes. Megan Thee Stallion, by the way, queen, absolute queen. But Maroon 5 were and still are a band, which will make his recent comments in a Zane Lowe Apple Music interview somewhat perplexing for some of us. Mind Zane Lowe?
Yeah.
The hottest record in the world right now. He's always an interesting chap, him, wasn't he? Like, he was like the proto-hipster. He really was.
Yeah.
He was the blueprint.
Yeah. Didn't he do
Anyway.
the Gonzo show? Gonzo was
I believe he did, aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Maroon 5 first broke through in 2002, album Song About Jane, and Levine told Lowe he'd been looking back at that era of music with his young daughter when he reached a realisation. It's funny how you go back and rewatch like these old videos and listen to these old songs, and I've been playing her a lot of Avril Lavigne records. Like, dude, I'm With You is like, yeah, that gives you tears, he said, but that wasn't a big realisation. Absolutely not. By the way, that Avril Lavigne album,
I was just gonna like, I don't know it, but I was just want to jump in and go, of all the examples you could give, that was the one that you went for.
but that is her best song I can think of, right, in terms of genuinely being a really good and well composed song.
I know, but he's complaining about bands, and Avril Lavigne isn't a band. Avril Lavigne is an artist.
Fair, okay,
yeah.
Right.
Who's the guitarist in Avril Lavigne's band? I don't know. I bet there's been a
It's
lot
Avril
of them.
Lavigne. She had a signature Fender. How dare you? Obviously, she writes all her own songs and plays all the instruments.
Yeah.
I Let Go, 2002. That album, banger. I'm With You, great song. Anyway, I feel like there aren't any bands anymore, you know? Levine continued, heading on a tangent from Levine. That's the thing that makes me kind of sad, is that there were just bands. There's no bands anymore, and I feel like they're a dying breed.
Yeah, no, this is the important part. This is where they put the spin on the story.
Yes. So say what? Well, before we go any further, Levine does in fact note that yes, there are bands. What he seems to be referring to is bands in the mainstream. Again, like, before we even go any further, he's talking shite. Biffy Clyro are one of the biggest selling bands on earth, and they're a three-piece.
Yeah, but like, we don't really need to read any more of the story, because this is where we can have this discussion. It doesn't mean that there aren't bands out there being successful. I went and looked at the music charts, the top singles charts, and you're struggling to find bands in there. What you're finding is artists. You're finding individuals. You're finding
or groups, which are 4 or 5 vocalists that have been put together by a record label with no instruments.
Yeah, exactly. So in that sense, I do feel that he has a point, but I don't know, it just feels really misrepresentative to run a story like this, because I think you want to, like, if this was fucking, what's his name, fucking David Crosby doing this, then you'd be like, oh, shut up, you old fucking curmudgeon. You don't necessarily expect this of Adam, because I like, surely we agree, we know where he's coming from. Biffy Clyro, they're a really good example, but they also illustrate the point that, the point that he's making, which is new bands aren't cool anymore. I name some, just go for some that have broken out in the last year and been really successful.
That's fair enough. I think the biggest bands that have came out have been bands like Nothing But Thieves or Imagine Dragons, and bands of that ilk, and most of the conversation round about them is people taking the piss out of them.
Right.
Imagine Dragons get the most abuse for a band that I don't know much of their music, but what I've heard on the radio is very well produced and well thought out in terms of soundscape. It might not be everybody's cup in terms of composition, but they're popular for a reason, and they've done something right.
Yeah.
whether they're responsible for the production and that sounding as big and introducing synth into it and just covering all bases, or wall of sound, whatever else. It could be, might not be, but
Sure.
certainly not bad sounding stuff.
The
But
focus
no, you're right.
of this show has always been, and my entire channel is just to encourage people to think a little bit more, critically about things, rather than see this title and go, fucking Adam, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and then moving on with your day. Let's really try and think about what it is he's saying. Ask yourself why he's saying it. I would argue that he's saying it for no real reason. He's just making conversation for the sake of making conversation. He's not talking about change per se. Like, we know why this has happened. From a marketing perspective, from a label perspective, it's easier to market an individual than it is to market an entire band of people. It's easier
also
to
cost less.
Yeah, exactly. To have one person and push that one person, then the band that play behind them are cheaper. You know, you don't have to split your money 5 ways in an ever dwindling industry where money is thinner and thinner.
Especially when it comes to royalties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because then rather than it being 5 artists and then the people who helped co-write it and produce it, it's one person as an artist and then the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Maybe even the ghostwriter themselves directly.
Yeah. So you can totally understand from a label perspective why it's going that way. But yeah, money and just the complexity of pushing a group rather than pushing an individual. You know, if you have a group, who goes on the poster? Well, you have to have everybody on the poster. Is that as effective from a marketing perspective as just having one person on a poster? A teenage girl in her bedroom with a poster of a person that they look up to and idolize, rather than a group of people. It will come back. You know, the music industry goes in circles like this. Bands will come back. Bands will start to be cool again in maybe 5 or 10 years. There's no doubt in my mind that will be the case, because it will just be a pushback on everything that we're experiencing now. And for
just waiting grunge coming back in.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Genuinely something that's kind of like...
Yeah. Anti-establishment.
Aye, like almost like a civil unrest, a musical civil unrest.
It's
like,
strange though.
There was a lot of protest before.
You know, WAP is to me that is the strange combination of being very anti-establishment, very, you know, bucking trends, but then also it comes from a place of full, heavy, unbelievable record label marketing manipulation, and you know, it's got both
very,
of those.
Very top of the charts.
Yeah, but it is both of those things. It's engineered kickback. No, kickback's the wrong word. It's engineered rebellion is the way I would probably put it. And I as you know, I like the tune. I don't
playing both sides.
Yeah, it'll take a long
sides.
time before that the side that we really want, that punky attitude of a band just coming back and kicking the shit out of everybody and doing something, is going to happen. I would encourage people, when they read Adam's opinions on things like this, to not look at it and go, he's an old idiot that is just whinging about things and doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe look at it from the perspective of him maybe being a catalyst is probably the wrong word, but you know, maybe this is the start of, you know, someone reading this and 5 years from now having a big band that comes out and changes things again, and then bands become cool. That's really the problem, because it's been about individuals, not groups. Are, I think, probably less common, less popular at the moment than just an individual. Certainly when we were younger, like the pop scene was all groups, right? It was boy bands and girl bands, and
they played instruments.
Yeah. Oh,
Busted, McFly.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking more Westlife and the Spice Girls, but Backstreet Boys. But you know,
those are engineered bands, though. They,
yeah,
generally speaking, didn't write their own material.
But Busted were an engineered band.
Of course they were, but I think they had some degree of songwriting.
Yeah, that was the an interesting example of it's WAP, but for our generation, right? It was playing both sides. It was engineered, but also trying to be trendy and be a band.
We are a pop punk boy band marketed at the most frothing market. Young teenage women who are discovering their sexuality but also want to appear cool, and we're like right in there because we're fashionable, we're easily marketable, we're family friendly, we've got a slight element of edge. We're kind of bucking the trend that we are a band that are at the top.
And it's funny that you use all those descriptions when in this very article, Adam, the reference he used was Avril Lavigne, who to me is that same thing. She's marketed at those same people, using those same methods for those same reasons, and ultimately the perfect example that he chose to give of the art at its finest was one of the reasons we end up where we are now. So yeah, good, well done, Adam. You played yourself, son. But he's contributed to it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't listen to any Maroon 5 after a certain period because they stopped sounding like a band. They don't sound like a band anymore. They sound like him. They sound like he is the face of things. There was a time when they first came out where you could list off all the members in the band because the band were important. Now when you say Maroon 5, you think of him. You see his fucking face.
You're not wrong.
So
you're right. It's always like, nobody just says Adam Levine. They always say Maroon 5's Adam Levine.
Yeah.
So like the context is like he is the main selling point, the forefront, the focal point of this band.
Yeah. And
of this musical venture. You don't even really call him a band at that point, which is quite unfair.
Yeah. And like I say, I do like him. I think he's written some great tunes, and like I say, I like the band. James Valentine, great guitar player. He's a jazz guy actually. He put out a jazz fusion record with someone at some point.
Nice.
Check out what that was called. I remember thinking it was pretty cool. But yeah,
I think it's one thing that I want to make very clear to anyone that's listening. As much as I'm not a big Maroon 5 fan, and I don't want to come across like I'm defending him or going against him, what I think is a very important context is, whether you like Adam Levine or not, he has a lot of learned experience in the music industry.
Oh yeah.
So his points are valid, at least from his learned experience, his own, and we can call it anecdotal without discrediting it. His experience of the music industry has went from being in a band, obviously having to play shows and whatever else, to essentially being the kind of guy that could just not work anymore.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about life in any capacity.
Yeah. I guess I kind of missed that aspect of things as well, like his learned experience. And it is anecdotal, but it's totally valid in this example. Like, he has gone from being in a band, to now being in a position where the label, everybody that he works with, has had to tell him, like, if we want to be successful here, we need to focus less on marketing a band here, and we need to spend more time focusing on marketing you. And he has seen the success of that. I'm sure everybody in Maroon 5 is just as happy that it's Maroon 5, but people think of Adam Levine because they're just still making the exact same amount of money, right?
The other thing being, the rest of the band might not want to be in the limelight. They might be happy to go out, do their stuff, get the recognition on stage that they get, and then have a private life.
Yeah.
Adam Levine's more of a celebrity in the sense that he went with the extra route of, fuck it, I'm going to be an American Horror Story. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He's been on advertising campaigns. Yeah. So maybe he's been like, well, you know what? I'll take the heat off everybody else. You can all have privacy in your life, and I'll be the forefront, and I'll just do the extra wee things. And the deal either would be that he takes all the money and that's the end of it, or what, I don't know. Like, that's an internal thing. Yeah. But he could be playing the martyr. Yeah.
And just to finish this story, I would just like to correct Music Radar even. It's songs, plural, about Jane, not song about Jane. The album's not called Song About Jane. Up your journalism, lazy bastards.
It's probably just a typo, you. we see a lot of articles for this Rob Lang, the person that's reported on this from Music Radar, so I'm going to give him a buy because usually a good source.
Okay.
I like to think that he's got some journalistic integrity.
Yeah, well,
not quite the appropriate response to put, but you know what I mean.
No, but a lot of the issues that we take with, like, there was a Newfound Glory story that we considered running with today, but it just seems so fucking irrelevant, an ex-member of the band type thing. But often we're talking about this idea of, like, we're criticising the ridiculously clickbaity titles that journalists go with because of this desperate need to get you to visit their website so they can serve ads to you and so they can still make money. And there's just... I don't know, it's like the gaming scene all over again. Like, we're going to have Musicians Gate soon, a response to Gamergate where we take issue with the way journalism is done in our industry. Some of the journalism in our industry is just fucking astonishingly bad.
Of course, but in the same context, I'm not saying it's bad or it's good, but we're reading the article and talking about it, aren't we?
Yeah. But a lot of the time it's to correct.
But even then, that Rob doesn't, I don't imagine, cares about that, and I don't imagine the editor that put it on Music Radar after Rob submitted it cares either, because it's close enough to the truth that they're not getting done for any objective lies.
Sure.
And it's also interesting enough that it's pulling people in. So,
so let's do our main story, and I think we can probably do this main story in less than 5 minutes. And that's just an update on the Alexi Laiho situation. His cause of death has been revealed. Shock horror. Alcohol-induced degeneration of the liver and pancreas connective tissue. Furthermore, he had a cocktail of painkillers, opioids, and insomnia medication in his system. Look after yourself, guys. Alcohol is a hell of a drug. As Ozzy put it on No More Tears, demon alcohol. I'm the demon alcohol. I'm the demon alcohol. I'll get you. It can just wreck and ruin people. And during these strange lockdowny times, more and more people are turning to substances in order to help themselves get through. I've started drinking.
You know what? It's funny you say that, right? And I'm very conscious of that as well. I have quite an addictive personality. Alcoholism runs in my family when it's not looked at objectively. And I think just addictive behaviour in general runs in my family. You'll probably have the same kind of notion of always being hyper vigilant of what you're doing and how far down the rabbit hole you're going. I've had a beer, genuinely one, maybe 2 beers a couple of nights during the week last week, and then I had a cocktail on Friday. Didn't have a beer or anything last night. And I'm so hyper conscious and hyper focused on not letting that get to something that becomes a crutch, or that I'm not being flippant with it. And I think it would be very easy, and I think it's very common for touring musicians, guys on the road, to rely on something that started off as just enjoying the moment, being excited about it, camaraderie, having a couple of beers with your pals, people you've just met on the tour bus, blah, 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 to just becoming this really horrible cyclic habit of, you get up in the morning, I feel shit, the only way I'm going to feel good is getting a couple of beers in me, then you get a buzz, then you start drinking, you get to the end of the day, I can't sleep because I'm buzzing, I need a drink to get to bed, and on the cycle continues. Very easy. And Alexi won't be the only person that this happens to as it goes on, 100%. Don't remember exactly how Vinnie Paul died. Was it a heart attack? I don't remember. Right, anyway, but I can almost guarantee that without looking it up, the amount of alcohol in his lifestyle would have been a massively, not a determining factor, but a massively contributing factor to his mortality at the age that he died at.
Yeah.
It's so common on the road. And sorry to have really jumped on this, I've just got one other quick point. I seen someone sharing, it was a post from Jeff Waters talking about Alexi Laiho and alcoholism. If you're not aware who Jeff Waters is, Jeff played in Annihilator, does play in Annihilator as the frontman now. No everybody's cuppa, tremendous guitarist. But he put a post up about Alexi and about alcoholism. It's quite long. Will I read it or will I just let people go to it? It's no stupid, but
give us an idea of what's in it.
I like this. I think this is a good bit of context and a very poignant put forward. So I just heard from Alexi's wife that his autopsy report showed death from alcohol-induced degeneration of the liver and pancreas connective tissue with painkillers, opioids and insomnia medication. Alexi and I hit it off right away back in 2003. I loved his playing and he loved mine. We loved the same guitar players too. From day one, however, he would ask me things like, how did you quit alcohol? How much did you drink? And didn't you go through withdrawal and how did you defeat this? Well, I've met many who drink excessively but they wish they could stop. Sometimes I get befriended by stars who know my story and feel safe confiding in me about theirs. It's a good feeling, but when I hear that they have got help, kick, take, addiction, etc., but more than not, they get to that point of confiding and wanting to get help, but then go right back to their former addictive and often deadly ways. Then they stop talking to me when they are back using. Sadly, Alexi was one of them. He really wanted to get clean. Addiction is a nasty fucker. Denial is a huge factor. My denial finally ended in the most strangest way, an episode of Oprah Winfrey Show. Yes, the Oprah Winfrey Show. The show featured an alcoholic mother who was trying to say she didn't really drink much and only beer. I thought, hey, that's like me. Oprah asked her how many beers she drank a day, and when the woman replied 8 to 10, and the crowd let out a huge, oh no, I didn't know how to react, because I was drinking 10 to 16 beers per night. And then the reason I mentioned Vinnie Paul is, in brackets followed this, the fact was also laughed at by 2 of the Pantera guys on March the 4th, 1992 in Vancouver. When they asked why I wouldn't drink with them, I told them I quit a few months ago. They said, is that all you drink? Or all you drank? And laughed. However, one of them came over quietly later and asked how I did it. I'm assuming that would have been Rex. Just try to put two and two together, because
Sure,
it's the only
sure.
person that really kicked the habit.
Yeah.
Or at least addressed his habit.
Yeah.
So back to the point, I realised the real problem when I noticed Oprah's crowd in utter disbelief that this mom was drinking 8 to 10 beers per night, and I was well over that. So that's the first time I decided I had a real problem and decided to quit right there and then. The next day I felt very ill, but I ate lots and slept a lot. But the second day I was watching TV and noticed what I thought was a moth or butterfly inside my shirt. It was not an insect, it was my heart. I took a pulse and it was around 180 BPM resting heart rate. I called 911 and said that my heart was literally seething through my chest. She said, "Sir, what kind of drugs did you take? Cocaine? Speed?" I said, "I don't do drugs." She sent the ambulance ASAP and assumed it was a drug overdose. Basically, I was poised for a heart attack. Literally a few more minutes and I would have been gone. Or I would have had one, sorry. The doctor asked me a few things and figured out I was going through withdrawal. Wow, I was weaned off alcohol slowly, then released. I did not want to die. I love life, so I knew I could never do that again. So I didn't drink for 4 years after that, when I slowly introduced a few beers here and there. But it slowly crept up over the next 3 years until I realised, okay, I'm not going back to that former addiction excess, so I stopped for good. No AA, no help. I did a lot of reading on addiction and living with it. I did it. Decades of sobriety now. But for most others, at this level of addiction, getting help is exactly what should be done. No shame, no blame. Getting and asking for help actually shows strength and love of life. So often people become so addicted to mask horrible things, and a crappy start to life makes it hard to see that life is worth living, no matter what the past was like. Babbling over, I promise. Alexi and countless others did want help. It was just beyond their capability to ask, get it, and continue sobriety. If you have or think you have any addiction issues, get help. It shows you're strong and you will make your life special, no matter how crappy or hopeless things are or have been. It just gets better. I miss you, Alexi.
Could not have put it better myself, so I'm not even going to try to, but then I'm immediately going to do it. We talk about mental health problems on the podcast all the time. We are constantly encouraging people that if you are having trouble, go and get help. There's no shame in it. You can tell us, you can tell people, tell your family, tell your friends, reach out, get the help and support you need. We are very big on that, and people talk about the podcast for that reason. We get a lot of people writing in to tell us that they've made positive changes because we've kind of reduced the stigma around it for them. And I want to do the exact same thing with addiction problems. If you have problems with drink or drugs, whatever it happens to be, you are not a weak person for going and asking for help. I'm actually going to be the opposite and say you are a weak person for not going and getting help. You're pathetic and hopeless if you don't do something about it. You are wasting your life if you do that. And that is not the life that you set out to lead. Please, for yourself, for the people that care about you, for us, please, if you have problems with anything, alcohol, drugs, whatever it happens to be, please go and do something about it.
Even if that means reaching out to us. As Levi said, there's been a few people have reached out, and this isn't virtue signalling or trying to prove the efficacy of what we do as if we are like a harm reduction group. No, we're two guys that have went through the ringer ourselves in certain ways, not had it worse or better than anybody else, just had our own shit to deal with, and we've been lucky enough to have each other and good support networks to get through shit. No, I mean,
I just like the having each other. I think people could picture us cuddling in bed.
Don't get excited, man. We've had this fan fiction already.
We'd stick together like Velcro.
Tangled in chest hair. Who would be the big spoon?
I think we'd mix it up, wouldn't we? We're super liberal like that.
This is how we're such a good team. Look, right, you've took me off my serious point, right? But all things aside, if the first step for you getting help or doing something positive for yourself is reaching out to tell Levi and I how you're feeling, or asking a question, or want a bit of advice, or even just want us to listen, if you just want to send us a fucking rant and you just want somebody to hear you out, please do it. I would rather spend 10-15 minutes reading through an email, a letter, a text, or a Facebook message, whatever, an Instagram message, and letting that person feel validated, and it potentially be the first step in a really good journey for them.
Yeah.
Than think that somebody's sitting at home alone, especially at the moment, man. The times are so piss. So piss.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks ass at the moment. Really. A lot of, like, I'm now job hunting. My gran's no well. My mum and my dad especially is super stressed. The family are stressed out with the full scenario. They're all fighting. There's 3 daughters and a son. So my dad and his 3 sisters. and there's a lot of things happening at the moment that's causing them to have not necessarily like anger between them, but tension. So
Sure.
like there's a lot of context within my family that stuff's going on. Everybody's got that. I'm not saying that because I want to have. I don't update you at the start of the podcast when Levi are talking because it's like we want sympathy for everything that's going on with us. It's not like Levi and I talk regularly about things that are going on with us because we look after each other. We're friends. Just last week, my car was getting an MOT. Levi's like, just take mine. It's fine. Like having that kind of support network, practical, emotional, it's invaluable.
Yep.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if you feel you need help and you don't know where to reach out, just fire us a message. The worst comes to worst, we'll signpost you to somewhere else to get you some better help.
Yeah.
Please do it. Please do it.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny you mentioned that, just as a very slight segue and a very quick one. For anybody that follows Party Cannon on Facebook, you'll maybe have seen that we had a bit of a run-in with Derek Tickle again of Rendai Flesh Design / Mr. Tickle. Now, as it all transpired, Derek then launched a Party Cannon page of his own with a logo that he didn't make, funnily enough, actually one that he didn't make,
Right.
claiming that it was his and blah 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 because he felt, or he put forward that Party Cannon and the fans were bullying him, and I didn't like that. Chris didn't like that. That's not our cuppa. It started off as Chris trying to get his money back from a guy who's not only scammed us but other bands, and trying to raise a bit of awareness. And I can see his point. It did get a bit witch hunty, you know. It'd be hard to defend yourself on one side, even if you're in the wrong, when there are so many people just coming at you, right? Sure. But the general consensus of people who know who Derek is, or have met him in real life, or have had other dealings with him in real life, is that he has a lot of problems. That's not so relevant to any of the stuff that's went on. It's just context as to what maybe happened during the process of the breakdown in our agreement, is maybe a nice way to put it, right? We felt the best action moving forward was to support a mental health charity, just give a bit of money back in, and just as like a kind of symbolic gesture. It's really important to everybody in the band that we are trying to do good for people. We've gave money to a couple of different charities, and again, it's not virtue signaling. It's not because we're like, oh, check us and see what we done. Like, it's just, it's the right thing to do when you can, and if you have the platform to do it. And I mean, even this podcast has been a bit of a proof to me that people do want to do good things for people, for other people. Like when we spoke about Kaylee's Just Giving page, the fundraiser, or the GoFundMe, whatever it was called, or whatever site it's on. Quite a few people that know Kaylee and don't know Kaylee contributed from us talking about it in the podcast, and I want to sincerely thank you for doing that. I think that is as altruistic as it gets. It's pure humanity. And to circle all this back up, when we have a healthy space, like I think you and I do, and we're lucky enough to have an honest relationship where you and I could probably talk about really, really horrible, difficult things, and just be there for each other and get through it, whether that's difficult conversations having to be had with each other or reassurance. I'd like to think that we foster that as part of our community. I'd like to think that. And that's probably the social justice warrior, like actual social justice warrior, as in studied ComEd at uni. Real social justice, transformative social justice, putting power back into people's hands. Civil unrest, we're getting political again. But yeah, reach out to us if you're struggling.
Yes, please do. So I think that's great advice. Really important advice. More than happy with that. We like giving good advice. Giving good advice is important. Let's try again. Giving good advice is important. I like to give good advice. For example, Did you know? This show has been brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. If you have the time, please do head on over and follow them on Instagram to see more of their incredible work. I'm actually spending more and more of my time each day scrolling through Instagram and really getting the appeal of looking at incredible instruments like this. It just makes you want to order something really, really special. Of course, you can always contact them if you want to order a custom shop guitar, or head on over to their website, check out the pre-order section, and get involved on the upcoming Goliath Run 14. Again, one of these guitars can be pre-ordered for as little as $1,200 US. That's an incredible price. That's a lot of guitar for very little money. So if you want something like this in your life, head on over to ormsbyguitars.com and get involved. Thanks so much to Ormsby, and we'll see you for another show soon. Laters. So as always, a huge thank you to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars. Please do go and check them out. Those guys are absolutely awesome. And check them out at Peach Guitars again. Peach Guitars in the UK. Great site. They have a lot of good stuff. But the Ormsby stuff is the best stuff they have now, I guess. That feels a bit shilly. Check out everything they have, but well done, Peach. And if you happen to have contacts in any shops, hit them up. Tell them that you want them to stock Ormsby guitars, because more people need to try these great guitars out. Get them in your hands. You'll love what you play. Any closing messages, Mike? Anything you want to say to the fans?
Thanks once again for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you're here in the Monday Night Guitar Geek Club. If you're not, get tuned in. If you are and you haven't liked this video, get that fucking liked. Stop being silly. Share it. Make sure your friends are here for the Monday Night Guitar Geek Club. If you've got questions they want to ask and they want to contribute and be part of the chat, or if they just want to listen to us or see us, you can get us on SoundCloud. If you want to support us, Teespring down below. I believe SoundCloud might have some form of monetization coming in.
It's not for podcasts.
No, is it just for music?
Just for music.
Cool. Fair enough. It makes things easier for us, I suppose, because at least that way it's another distinction between doing it for love and doing it.
Yeah. One more place where the podcast doesn't make money.
That's it. If anybody wants to give us lots of money so that we don't have to worry about money, then it'd be nice. But that's just if we have a incredibly altruistic millionaire listener that just decides, fuck it. Maybe Jeff Bezos is listening and he's like, you know what? I'm sure I could spare a couple of million each. There you go. Yeah, that would be nice. Make life a lot easier. If somebody could make my solicitors disappear as well, that would be wonderful. Thank you. That sounds like a threat. It does, doesn't it? It's not intended that way. I don't mean in like any sort of violent way. I mean like as a magician, like you could just click your fingers and poof, they're gone. That would be wonderful. That's it. Everyone's dealt with and that's it. Yeah. It'd be nice. Thanks once again for tuning in. Sweet. Mike, until next time. Like the fucking video. I agree. Do it.